Hi guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another rules breakdown. And this time I'm going to be covering Carbon Grey, the role-playing game, or at least the Quickstart rules version of it, because the full game's not out yet. Although, given this is the magnetic variant of the rules, and I believe they're pretty well fleshed out, I don't think there's going to be any differences between the Quickstart version and the main rules once they come out. However, there may be refinements and clarifications, so things I might get wrong. If that's the case, I'll do another video on the full rules when I get my copy, which is supposed to be around about Christmas, I believe. But this will do for now. Also, this is the D6 system, although the magnetic variant of the D6 system. So it's going to be very similar to the various Star Wars rules breakdowns I've done in the past, and that on D6 Space. There's going to be a lot of similarities here, but I think there's enough interesting new stuff in these that people who like those systems might want to look over these rules and see what the differences are and see how they enhance the original rules. So skills, much like in the other versions of the D6 system, are rolled against target numbers. So if we look on page 16 here, we have difficulty numbers and level of difficulty. So if something's very easy, you've got a difficulty number of 5. Easy, 10. Average 15, difficult 20, very difficult 25, and extremely difficult 30. And you're rolling your skill plus your attribute. Now, in the other systems, they were listed together. So if you had a 4 dice blaster skill, 4 dice dexterity, and a 3 dice blaster skill, you would have 7 dice blaster skill. But Carbon Grey lists these slightly differently by having the skills listed as just the dice which gets added. So in the example given here, a character with dexterity 2 dice plus 1 and acrobatics of 1 dice rolls 3 dice plus 1 when using acrobatics. So they're trying to use their acrobatics to flip over a small trench. They're running away from an enemy, so they're rolling their 3 dice, throw them, they get 3 4s, they get 12, they get 13. So they beat an easy. Now, also to be considered in this is success and failure values, which are on page 18. So if you get 3 times your difficulty number or better, you have an exceptional success. If it's 1 to 2 times, it's an ordinary success. So this 12 being only between 1 and 2 times the 10, so it's between 10 and 20, it's an ordinary success. If you get the number exactly, it's a partial success. If you get a -1 to -9, ordinary failure, -10 to -19, exceptional failure, -20 or worse, a catastrophic failure. So instead of just succeeding or failing, you've got different levels. If you are trying against somebody, so somebody's trying to con somebody and the other person's rolling their perception to see whether they notice, then they will roll their number of dice, whoever gets the higher wins. It's as simple as that. And also introduced into the system is the wild dice. So normally when you're rolling dice, you would roll 1 d6 of a different type. So a red one if you're rolling sort of ordinary blue dice or whatever. But if you were using an automated dice roller like this, I would just take it as your first dice. Now if you roll a 6, it has benefits to you and the player gets to choose the benefits. If you roll a 1, then there's penalties to it, and the games master gets to choose the penalties. So, advantages. If the wild die is a 6, you get to choose one of these advantages. If the roll is already successful, you can have an ordinary success becomes an exceptional success, and the player gains 1 hero point. The player can gain 2 hero points. Another player or ally in the scene can gain 1 hero point. So, by succeeding, you give yourself hero points, and you can assign some of those to other people. If you are going to fail, then you can choose to roll the wild die and add, much like the Star Wars and D6 Space system did. Or you can still fail, but gain 1 hero point. So if you failed by an absolutely massive amount, then you still fail, but you get a hero point to benefit yourself for it. On the other side of things, if you rolled a 1, then the games master gets to choose. So, if you had succeeded, the game master can choose to introduce a setback, so it takes longer or use up some resources. An ordinary success becomes a partial success and you gain 1 hero point, or you fail and you gain a hero, or gain 3 hero points. Or if you failed completely and you rolled a 1 on your wild die, the GM can introduce a setback. They can turn an ordinary failure into an exceptional failure and the player gains 1 hero point, or turn an exceptional failure into a catastrophic failure and the player gains 2 hero points. In addition to your ordinary skills, you can get benefits to them, so you can have things like sights on a gun, which would give you extra dice to your skill, and you would roll them. You can also get penalties, so in darkness you might lose a dice for difficulties. So Carbon Grey uses a slightly different system for initiative than the other D6 system games. You see, while it uses the same system as Star Wars, where only one person on each side rolls for initiative, and then that entire side goes depending on that roll. So the person with the highest skill rolls. If you get the highest, then you get to declare whether you go first or second. If you go first, you get to declare your actions, the enemy declares your actions, then you get to act, and you go first. Or if you declare to go second, then you get to see what the enemy's doing and change your actions based on that. So if they're not going to shoot at you, you don't need to keep skills aside for dodge. Now, I didn't like that. I think it takes away from characters having to spend multiple experience on becoming a fully fleshed out character. And it really takes away from the second part of the initiative. Because in Carbon Grey, it's one of 2 skills you have to roll. You see, when your character is ready for trouble, like when you're in the middle of a fight, you roll Reflex, which is a dexterity skill. When they're not, such as when a fight hasn't broken out yet, you roll Instinct, which is a perception skill. Well, that's putting a lot of load onto perception, because your perception is also the target number people use to attack you when you're not prepared to be shot at. So your initiative is based off that, and firearm skills based off that. So having a high initiative is really, really important. Whereas dexterity has been downgraded because it is involved in dodging. It is involved in being your target number when you're ready for combat. It is involved in your initiative when you're ready for combat. But it's only otherwise involved in melee combat, because brawling, so fisticuffs, that kind of stuff, is strength-based, and guns is perception-based. So it's really taken away from the use of dexterity. I'm not really keen on that, but I can see what they were getting at, and it is quite an interesting idea. So basically, whoever has the highest instinct or reflex rolls it, and whoever gets the highest roll wins the initiative for that round. Now, combat is very similar to the other D6 games, and extremely similar to the skill rolls, in that you're rolling an attribute plus a skill against a target number. So most of the time you're going to be shooting a gun, so that's going to be your perception plus your marksmanship against a target number. If you're using melee combat, then it's dexterity plus your melee skill, and if you're brawling, then it's strength plus your brawling skill. Now, what the target number is different than older games. The older games used to have a standard target number that you would roll against. But in the new one, you have these SRP defenses, which are a very nice addition. So, if the character is surprised, if they are not expecting attack, then you are rolling against target number of their perception times 3. Now, what it means by perception times 3 is it's the dice, not any pips. So if you've got a skill of 2 dice plus 1 for your perception, then you're rolling, or your target number will be the 2 of the 2 dice times 3, making a target number of 6. If the character is ready to be attacked, you're in the middle of combat, then it uses their dexterity times 3. And for psychic attacks and magical powers, that kind of thing, it's using the psyche, which is willpower times 3. And it's as simple as that. There are modifiers involved. So if we go back, we've got ranges. So if you're using small pistols, then the range will go up, which gives you a bonus on the target number. And You've got situational attack, so things like if the target's in cover, then you are losing dice to your skill. So the target number goes up and your skill goes down, depending on which penalties the Games Master decides to use for each roll. So damage is very similar to it is in other D6 games, in that you're rolling the damage of the weapon, or the person who's dealing the weapon's strength plus any bonus from a weapon, against the target's strength plus any armour. So, if we're firing a gun, then we just have standard dice sizes. But if we flick over the page here to page 46, we can see that weapons tend to do strength plus a bonus. So if you're using a knife, you're using your strength plus 1. So if you've got 3 dice strength, you're doing 3 dice plus 1 damage with a knife. But if you're shooting a gun, you'll just be getting a standard dice size. So we've got the reliable revolver here. We'll use that. So we're rolling 5 dice. Click 5 dice, we roll throw, and we get 11. Now that's a pretty poor roll. Now that's being rolled against a target's strength. So we'll take a very standard strength of 2 dice, and we will add some armour. So we've got armour types here. So we've got a helmet, which is +1, and we've got a combat harness, which is +2. Now, what I would tend to do in Star Wars, and what my group tends to do, is the same way that skills progress. So if you reach 3 pips, it's actually equal to 1 dice. But I know a lot of people who play Star Wars tend to just add the pips up together. So +2 and +1 equals a +3. So this character will be rolling 2 dice plus either 3 or 1 dice, depending on how you work it. Leave that up to you. We will just do the +3 for convenience sake. So 2 dice, let's clear, 2 dice, throw. They get 5 +3, so they get 8. So what does that actually mean? Well, if we turn to page 39 here, we have the damage totals compared to strength. So the target rolled 8 on their strength roll. So was the 11 less than 8? Nope. Was it between strength total and strength total items 2? So between 8 and 16? Well, yes it was. So that character is receiving a wound. Was it between strength total 2 and 3? No, it wasn't. Was it times 3 or more? No, it wasn't. So the character's received a wound. Now you'll notice that no matter how high you roll on your strength, the damage roll will always be, at worst, less than the strength total. So you must always receive a stun. The effect of a stun is that the defender can't take any basic actions for the rest of the combat round, which does leave this system open to characters being ticked. So if somebody goes first and does any damage to you, even with a pea shooter, doing 1 dice damage against you, they roll a 1, and you roll 50 on your strength, you take a stun, so you don't act the rest of that round. It's an annoyance with me. If the character, like in this case, has received a wound, they must succeed on a DN strength stamina roll or fall prone. Even if that roll succeeds, they can't take basic actions for the rest of the combat round and have -1d to all rolls until they are no longer wounded. A wounded character who is wounded again becomes incapacitated. So they've taken away the wounded twice status out of Star Wars 2nd edition revised and expanded. Incapacitated, the defender falls prone and unconscious, can't take any actions until no longer incapacitated. An incapacitated character who is wounded or incapacitated again becomes mortally wounded. And mortally wounded, as incapacitated, but they are no longer mortally wounded. Until they are no longer mortally wounded, they must roll 2d at the end of every round. Now, while they're mortally wounded, they're rolling 2 dice against a target number of the number of rounds since they were mortally wounded. So they're rolling 2 dice, trying to get under 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. If they roll under that, then they pass away. So you have an ever increasing target number, or the character will die. Now, advancement in Carbon Grey is done with skill points. Now, it doesn't really detail in the Quickstart rules how these work, although we can consider that they probably work very similar to 1st edition Star Wars. in that you increase your skills and it costs a number equal to the dice size to increase that skill by 1 pip. So increasing a skill of 1 dice to 1 dice plus 1 will cost 1 skill point. Increasing it to 2 dice, you'll have to increase it to plus 1, plus 2, and then 2 dice. So that would be 3 skill points. And then it will cost you 2 per pip after that. So if you've got a skill at 5 dice and you're increasing it to 5 dice plus 1, it's going to cost you 5 skill points for that. Now, in Star Wars, that becomes expensive because the skills are added straight to the attribute. So if you've got a dexterity of 4 dice, a blaster skill of 1 dice, to increase that, it's going to cost you 5 skill points because your blaster skill's counted as being at 5 already, plus 1 onto your dex. Now, Carbon Grey measures them differently in that the skills are only their original point size. So 1 dice, which you then add later to the attribute. So it's possible skill costs will be a lot less. The other thing is hero points. Now, hero points are kind of like force points in earlier versions in that you spend them to double the dice code of a single roll, or re-roll a failed roll, or when you receive mortally wounded, incapacitated, or wounded condition, reduce it to stunned instead. Now, you receive hero points at the end of adventures, and the sample adventure gives you 6 of them, but you also get them for rolling successes or 6s on your wild die or 1s on your wild die. You will often get hero points. So hero points look like they are received a lot faster and they go a lot faster because you can get them during play, you spend them during play, you get them at the end of the adventures as well for the next adventure. So rather than the Star Wars one of you've got a bunch of force points which you slowly spend through the adventure and then they get awarded again at the end, these come and go during play and add to a far more flexible system. So that's just a quick look through the Carbon Grey rules. Obviously it's a quick starter, so some of the rules aren't in there. There's going to be a lot more to be fleshed out. Now I've put into the Kickstarter for Carbon Grey, so I'll be getting a copy of the book rules through when they come out. I'll be getting the PDF as soon as it's available, and I believe they say that the physical books will be getting sent out by the end of the year. So when I get that through, I'll have a look through, and if it's radically different, I'll redo this video, I'll update it, or inform you of any major changes. But I think I've whittled on for quite long enough, so thank you very, very much for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment below, as it does do me massive favours with the YouTube algorithm. It really does. But most of all, as always, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.